What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to TCAM Sports Podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Cameron Tracewell. Today, so we're going to talk about college football. It is week 2. Excitement. Everybody loves that we are progressing into the weeks, and it was a great week 1. Florida State, Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago was fun. Last week, Florida State plays Boston College, loses, so they're 0-2. Is Florida State's season done? That is yet to be determined, but I think it is. I think they're done. I think it's over. But we'll get into that here a little bit later. We had West Virginia, Penn State play last week. We saw USC, LSU, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. There was some pretty good games last week and some pretty good matchups that we have seen. But so here's the story for that. On this episode, I'm not going to review each thing that happened last week or each game. For the most part, throughout the season, my Twitter, my TikTok, my Instagram, even Facebook, my social medias off of YouTube and YouTube Shorts here, really, are going to be a lot of reactions of what I thought of the games. That goes for NFL, for college, your big-time games, your big-time losses. I talked about Florida State losing to Boston College in the YouTube Shorts video or even on my TikTok. So go follow TCAM Sports Podcast on TikTok. Or go follow TCAM Sports Podcast on Twitter. I'm doing polls and stuff on Twitter every single day. We're doing votes, talking about each game or each thing of the week. On YouTube here, I have in the shorts category, I do the same thing when I do a TikTok upload. But go follow my TikTok. Go follow, like TikTok, and you're going to see reaction videos of what happens during that certain week. However, there is one game from last week we are going to talk about today. I did not talk about him. I did not react to it. That's because it was personal. It was emotional. It was the West Virginia Mountaineers facing off against Penn State. Now, last week on this podcast, I said West Virginia can beat, and I think will beat, Penn State. I got my hopes up, and I got disappointed. Am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised. But I didn't think West Virginia would do some similarities to what they did last year, right? Defensively. On the coverage last year in the secondary, they were lackadaisical. They did the same thing this year. They were soft. They soft coverage, and Penn State took advantage of that. I thought our front seven for the first half of the game was actually pretty solid against the run. Held Singleton down in the first half, just couldn't maintain the whole game. Garrett Green, what's he do best? What was the best thing about Garrett Green? He's a hybrid quarterback, so he's mobile. He's not the greatest passer, but he can pass the ball effectively. He didn't really run the ball at all. So when I look through that game, if I go to Garrett Green's stats, he had 10 carries for 5 yards. I don't think I've ever seen Garrett Green run so little in a football game. They were disappointing. Their pass game was disappointing. The entire offense, fumbling the ball, is atrocious. For me, West Virginia beat themselves more than Penn State actually beat them. I know Penn State has good potential to be a good team this year and improve, but I thought it was a game that West Virginia could have snuck out and beat them. And it was. I mean, West Virginia could have gone up early, right? Penn State fumbled the ball. West Virginia recovered it. West Virginia then fumbles the ball. Goes back and forth. And West Virginia on a couple fourth downs near the goal line, they could have, or at least the 10-yard line, they could have scored points or tried to get into the end zone, but they just never completed the goal when they needed it to. So West Virginia, I think, beat themselves more than Penn State got this win. Congratulations to Penn State getting the win, but for last game and last week, West Virginia, to me, pretty much blew the game. So that is my overall reaction on the West Virginia game. Now, however, we are into week 2, so we got to leave week 1 behind and move on to week 2. We'll talk about some good potential games this week. There's really only one ranked potential game that's going to be good because all the other ones they're facing just average teams. But there is 2 other games that I think would be particularly be good for the top 25 games. So, looking at it, if I would say the first one I would say is Iowa State and Iowa, the Battle of Iowa, which they're rivals, right? One's in the Big 12, one's in the Big 10. Iowa always has a good defense. Cade McNamara, what's he going to do this year, right? Is Iowa going to have the offense that If they had any offense, they would probably be able to win the Big Ten. They scored 40 points against Illinois State last week. Iowa State, they played North Dakota. They won 21-3. This game's always a close game, going to come down to the wire. So I'm looking for Iowa to pull this off. Their defense is better. I think their defense is going to be pretty good this year, and their run game is going to be pretty solid. So I'm going with Iowa to get the win at home against Iowa State. But I think it's going to be a good game. It'll be a close, tight game. So I'm going to go with Iowa, but it'll be a close, tight game. Another game that I think would be interesting is Kansas and Illinois. Jalen Daniels had a good game last week. He had a good game. He played good. Good comeback for their offense, right? For Kansas. Now they face a Big Ten opponent. Illinois has never been gifted on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, they always have a pretty solid defense. So to see them go up against Kansas and see what how they can handle that Illinois defense is going to be the most interesting task. Do I think it's going to be a close game? No, not particularly, because Illinois' offense will not match Kansas' offense. But I think the defense on their side of the ball is going to be really good, and I like to see how Jalen Daniels reacts to a tougher defense or a more experienced defense in an Illinois team. NC State and Tennessee, I know this is a ranked matchup. Do I think it's going to be a thriller? Not really, because NC State didn't really play. They didn't start their opener off really well against Western Carolina. 38-21, but it was a close game for a little while. I wasn't too impressed. Tennessee played Chattanooga. I think Tennessee's going to be a pretty solid game. Tennessee's going to be a pretty solid team this year, and we want to see them build and get better. So I'm going to go with Tennessee over NC State. Clemson and App State. Clemson, number 25, against Appalachian State. What do I say about Appalachian State every single season? I've talked about it for multiple years. I've been on record for multiple shows talking about this. App State is always the team to come in at the beginning of the season against some ranked opponent, and guess what? Always drag it out. I think it was last year they played North Carolina and they drug it to overtime or double overtime last year. Every single year App State gets this crazy ranked team they get to play, and everybody's like, App State's going to lose. And App State always, either whether they lose or not, they cause a lot of stress for a lot of teams because they're always in the battle. App State's always in the battle. So when I see App State play a ranked team, I'm always going to, come close and look towards it because it's a game that's going to be interesting. I just know it's going to be interesting. Other than those games particularly, I don't think a lot of these other games are going to be really that thrilling. Maybe Oregon and Boise State, but because how Oregon played last week against Idaho, but it might be interesting. But I think Oregon will be improved this week. USC versus Utah, not too much thrill. Ohio State versus Western Michigan, no. Missouri versus Buffalo, not looking too shabby for the rest of the week. I think the rest of the week the other teams could pull out and get some wins. Now, West Virginia, our West Virginia Mountaineers, I said I would talk about this every single week, right? This is West Virginia, the pick of the week, second pick, week 2 picks, right, for West Virginia. They play Albany. Albany is an FCS team. I heard they're a pretty solid team overall, but I think West Virginia will just beat the crap out of them, really, because they have a lot of pent-up anger for how they played last week. They didn't play very good last week. I think they're going to come out and storm the field, storm and take down Albany easily at home, do what they should have done last week against Albany. So I just think that's what's going to happen. I think West Virginia is going to storm over Albany, and West Virginia will go 1-1 coming out. Now, the game of the week. The game of the week. In the Big House, the defending champs will take on Texas Longhorns, Steve Sarkisian, Quinn Ewers. This squad. We got a team. We got a squad. Warren for Michigan. I don't know what to think of him really yet. I don't know what to think of this Michigan squad. They got a lot to go on. They got a lot to build on. Texas, though, solid team coming into a hostile environment. I don't care what anybody says. The Big House is the Big House for a reason. It is a hostile environment. And the Big House and Michigan have a good defense, and they got a good secondary. So Quinn Ewers is in for a battle. He's in for a battle to take on this tough Michigan defense. Who do I think is going to win? I think Texas is going to get this win because their offense is going to be better than Michigan's offense. While Michigan's defense is solid, I don't think it's going to be able to hold out the entire game, and I think Texas and this experienced offense is going to get the better of them. So, got to give me Texas over Michigan, but in the big house, game day, going to be fun. This is a short episode, I know. We're in week 2. There's not tons to talk about. There's not a ton of games to talk about. I've reacted to a lot of the teams, or I've reacted to a lot of the games last week on my TikTok and stuff, so there's not so much to talk about in the YouTube video as much as there's going to be, when the ranked matchups get closer and we have more conversation. But look out for the social medias for the reaction videos. There'll be reaction video to Texas and Michigan. There'll be reaction to West Virginia versus Albany because I love my West Virginia Mountaineers. I'm going to talk about it. Clemson and App State, I know for sure I'm going to be talking about. So there'll be more to talk about throughout time, but for right now, I don't have to address that issue. It's going to be all, the reactions on TikTok and stuff, and this is going to be the pretty much going into the week. So anyway, NFL, look out for the reaction videos as well on the TikTok and everything else. NFL episode. If you have not seen it, go check out the NFL. I picked out my picks of week 1. We're going to do that same thing every single week. Week 1 picks, Kansas City. Got Kansas City first. So I picked Kansas City to beat the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson. What happened? Mahomes got your number, dog. All right, well, anyway, hope you all enjoy college football. Love being on here, love being back. So anyway, hope you all have a great weekend. First weekend of NFL, second weekend of college football. Hope you all enjoy yourselves. I'll see y'all later.